Ask Reddit by La La Learns. What's the worst thing about living alone? Fear of choking. There's a thing you can buy called a life vac. That's for choking. It's kind of like a suction tube thing. I initially got one because I sometimes look after my baby niece at my apartment, but the instructions say you can use it on yourself in an emergency. The asshole that doesn't refill the ice tray. I hate that guy. Paying twice the rent utility bills just for privacy. Yeah, to me that is the only downside. If you can afford to live alone, I highly recommend it. A couple years ago, my wife had to have a total hysterectomy. She's always told me what a nightmare it would have been to have not had me helping her with so many different things through her months of recovering. So I got to go with a situation like that, but without having someone there to help. Yep. I had to have surgery a few years ago and couldn't walk for months. Living alone was really hard. When something good or bad happens in your day, it's kinda sad to come home to no one to share it with. That's why I brought my pets with me. Nobody there to distract you from your thoughts on nights when you need it. No one to ask if they hear the voices too. Having to pay for everything yourself. Everything else is awesome. Facts. It's awesome being alone, it's just hard to afford it. 6 months ago I went back to living alone after leaving a 6-year toxic and abusive relationship. I have never appreciated the solitude more. Every day is like a dream. I will never take it for granted again. Yes, sometimes it can get lonely, but it's a small price to pay to not have someone criticizing, freeloading, making messes everywhere he goes, not contributing anything. I might live this way forever. Your peace is priceless. Glad you're in a better place now. No one to split chores with. Or the bills. The loneliness and financial burden. I still don't miss having roommates and I really don't envy other living situations, and I have felt incredible levels of loneliness. If you previously lived in a house where there were other people, family, friends, roommates, that you'd see right after coming back from school or work, living alone does hit hard when you return to an empty house, especially in winter. In July 2019 I went from living in a 4-bedroom house with 7 people to living alone. It was nice not have some space to myself. 5 years of coming home to nothing has changed my mind. The dependency of that lonesomeness. When you've lived alone for a while, the loneliness stops being jarring. You learn how to mitigate your loud thoughts and before long, you get comfortable in that state of being alone. The loneliness starts becoming comfort and the thought of having anyone else in your space just drives you insane. When people visit, or you visit others, you start longing for when they'll leave, or you'll go back home, and be alone again. Being alone stops being synonymous with loneliness and you start counting on and even depending on your loneliness. IDK if that makes sense, but that's how it's been for me. Been living alone for 5 years now. Absolutely myself as well. I honestly would like to meet a girl, date and things. But dear God, do I not want to lose my solitude. Loneliness. Have you lived with someone else? The silence which is louder than the noise. That weird SSSSSSSSSSSSSS sound? That's what I hear. I just drown it out by talking to myself. Hearing nosies in the middle of the night. Get a cat, you will always just assume it's the cat and go back to bed. Lived by myself for about 5 days before I opted for the cat. Feeling unsafe. I have anxiety that someone will break in or follow me. Second, this young female, and it's always in my mind that someone I've been involved with prior could be a psycho and no, I live alone and come break in or get others too. The loneliness. You find out how much of our behavior is motivated by having people around us. Your house starts to get messy, until the inevitable rush to clean before a guest visits. Your cooking gets lazier. You'll make yourself a fancy dinner every now and then, but it always feels silly and there's too many dishes. You find it harder to watch movies by yourself. I will challenge you on the cooking thing. Don't feel silly about that. You're treating yourself and you get the full benefit of your own labors, not to mention you're keeping vital and valuable skills sharp. I get the loneliness. I live alone and vacillate wildly between loving it and hating it, but you have to give yourself some credit. Taking yourself out on a date, preparing and then plating your own meal, pouring yourself a good glass of wine, and looking after each detail is art in itself, even if you are the sole consumer, and you have to clean your entire kitchen after just one meal. No one to blame for the mess but me. Surgeries. If I die, my cat will likely eat me before they find me. When you hear a baby cry in the spare room at 4 AM. Don't forget the warm toilet seat. You have to defeat the monsters under your bed by your own. And kill all the spiders yourself, with no backup. Worrying that if you die, no one will find your pets in time. My greatest fear. All the responsibilities, financial and otherwise, fall on me. There is no backup. Getting sick. Dealing with COVID while sick was a pretty difficult ordeal for me. Lived alone and got COVID a couple months ago. That was hellish. Worse than living alone and having 2 strokes back to back. Yeah, did that too. COVID was worse. I need to breathe to live.